Welcome everybody. Welcome to the 7th US-India conference. And I'm just absolutely delighted for everybody to be here, to see you all here. And on behalf of both UCSC and AIMA, I want to thank you for being here. It's just a great event. Think of this as a community dialogue that brings the business and academia together from both countries to ponder over issues of mutual interest. Both in India and US. And let me say this, that every time I go to India, I see a lot more about India's soft power. And soft power, as you know, is a way to influence without hard power, without armaments or anything. And I think on the culture side, I think the US gave India veggie burgers, and India gave US samosas. Right? I mean, samosa is a household word at this point. No party is complete without, I don't want you to feel hungry or anything, but that's sort of an exchange. So a little bit about UCSC. So we're serious people, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And in that regard, we only use first names. Although if you want to call me Sir PK, that's fine too. That, you know. But, you know, so as example, how we don't take ourselves seriously, if you see these pictures, that's a banana slug. And those of you who are not local may not be aware of the banana slug. It's just it's another kind of worm, I guess a slug. And now you would think, see, this is a non-serious part. I mean, the fact that a university which chooses mascot, not warriors or Trojans or, you know, braves, as a banana slug. And perhaps one of my colleagues can explain how it came about, but I'm sure there's a story behind it. And so that's, and by the way, on an honorable note, last week, State of California declared banana slug is the official slug of California. How's that? So we are definitely moving up in the scale. And I also want to sort of kind of give a heads up to our visiting delegations. You're probably up on all of the American politics these days, but please refrain from using the word weird. It is a very loaded word these days. Isn't that kind of sounds weird? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Anyway, we have a great program. There's a QR code, and you can download. We are being totally paperless. We have an inaugural panel and 3 panel sessions. It'll move pretty fast, loaded with lots of good information. So with that, I'd like our inaugural panel members to come join be on the stage. So Cindy, Sunil, Consul General, Rekha, and Galina. Please join me in welcoming this inaugural panel. So with that, I'm going to ask Cindy Larive, our Chancellor of UCSC, come and make a few remarks.
I don't want to do a mic drop, right? That's a great way to start the event. So I just wanted to welcome you all. Good afternoon. We're just thrilled you can join us for this US-India conference, co-hosted by AIMA and UC Santa Cruz. It's our second year hosting the event here at our Silicon Valley Center, and it's been such a positive experience for us. I'd like to begin by recognizing all the esteemed members of the AIMA delegation. I wonder if those of you who are not on the podium would stand so we could recognize you. And Chairman Sunil Mujal, thank you so much for being here with us, and Director General Rekha Sethi. We're just thrilled to have you back here at our Silicon Valley campus, and deeply appreciative of how the relationship between AIMA and our campus has flourished over the last few years. I'd also like to recognize and thank K. Srikar Reddy, the Consul General of India at San Francisco, for his involvement today. It speaks both to the significance of this event, but also to the strategic importance of the relationship between our countries. India has the fastest growing economy in the world, and we have so much to learn from each other. In July, we were able to deepen our connections with Indian scientists and educators as we hosted a joint symposium on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cybersecurity on our Santa Cruz campus with faculty from IIT Delhi and IIT Kanpur. It was a valuable opportunity for all parties to explore potential collaborations. Today's summit is an equally strong opportunity for us to translate expressions of interest into tangible, concrete collaborations that advance the integration of our economies and our societies. I'm also deeply grateful for the members of the UC Santa Cruz community who join us today. I'm deeply proud of the work undertaken by our faculty and our students. Our campus is a research powerhouse, a member of the prestigious Association of American Universities, as well as the Association of Pacific Rim Universities. We strive to do high-impact research focused on developing solutions to the most pressing issues of the day. And so some of those are related to sustainability, climate change, and also sustainable methods of farming. And I imagine you're just admiring these beautiful flowers. You should know that those came from the UC Santa Cruz farm, that they are sustainably grown, and they graciously brighten our stage. Well, today we have a great set of panels, don't we? I'm so excited to hear from all our distinguished guests, the AIMA delegation members, UC Santa Cruz faculty as they weigh in on timely topics. The Indo-Pacific region has become an important new arena of strategic, political, and economic power. And AI is a new frontier where countries are actively maneuvering for leadership and for supremacy. In this context, it is vital that as world leaders, the U.S. and India work together to sustain the recent resurgence in global economic growth. So thank you for coming today. Together, we can help build a stronger U.S.-India partnership.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for that welcoming remarks. Next, I'd like to ask Director General of AIMA, Rekha Sethi.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back, and especially back at UC Santa Cruz. Dr. Srikar Reddy, Consul General of India at San Francisco, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, Chairman AIMA International and Chairman the Hero Enterprise, Cynthia LaRive, Chancellor, University of California, Santa Cruz, Galina Hale, Professor of Economics, UC Santa Cruz, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here at the Silicon Valley campus of UC Santa Cruz and to having all of you join us for the 7th US-India Conference. Many thanks for joining us for what promises to be some very interesting dialogues on US and India. Consul General Reddy, many thanks for agreeing to join us today for the conference. You are among the rising stars of India's foreign service, and you're a big assurance for Indian business in this super city. Your role as the chief negotiator in concluding India's trade deals with UAE and Mauritius is highly regarded, and we see you playing a central role in India's foreign affairs. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on the strength and future of US-India relationship. Cindy, thank you so much for hosting us and for having us back once again, and especially for your warm welcome. AIMA is privileged to associate with UC Santa Cruz in facilitating an exchange of knowledge and ideas and promoting US-India relationship. You lead one of India's best-funded research university, which is also a benchmark for social and environmental initiatives. We value your friendship and your guidance deeply. Mr. Munjal, you have been a driving force behind this conference, and it is great to have your guidance and support. You're a statesman of Indian industry and a patron of education and culture, and you think deeply about national and global affairs. Many thanks for being with us. Galena, it's a pleasure to have you with us. We look forward to your observations on US-India economic engagement. A very special thanks to the wonderful team we have worked with in UC Santa Cruz, without whose efforts this conference would not have been possible, led by my good friend PK Agarwal, Dean, UC SC Silicon Valley Extension, whose rock-solid support is deeply valued. The rest of the fantastic team, Kristen, who's always made things happen, Kerry, Manasi, James, Samantha, and Stephanie. A big thank you to all of you and the silent support of Mark Davis, who I haven't met yet, but I'm sure he's around. You made it fun for us to work with you. Many thanks, and I think they deserve a huge round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, this US-India conference is focusing on the emerging facets of bilateral relationship and cooperation. The world continues to change rapidly and radically, and both the US and India have to continuously redefine their interests and reassess their position and prospects in the emerging world order. In this conference, we will focus on mutual trade, technology partnership, and trust in each other's institutions. These are the key facets of US-India bonding, and we need to identify ways to get these right so that this relationship can withstand any differences, divergence, and disruptions. Geopolitics and the AI economy are emerging as major challenges to values, policies, and politics in this conference, and we will discuss how the US and India can work together to secure the respective interests and to make the world at large stable and safe. The US and India continue to get more intertwined as their interests, foreign policy, and even politics converge. The US presidential election is of immense interest to Indians, as India's economy and security are now greatly aligned with the US. The Indian diaspora has as much interest and influence in elections in India as it has in the domestic elections in the US. The large number of professionals of Indian origin in the US tech, finance, medical, and education, including many CEOs, have fused the US-India politically, economically, and culturally. Since the 1990s, the number of Indians settled in the US has grown exponentially. Indian techies have contributed immensely to the US digital economy, and today they are leading some of the tech giants, and many Indians are involved in AI research and development. Education is an area where a two-way flow of students and faculty would greatly add to economies of both the US and India. AIMA has been talking to UCSC for conducting joint management programs, and hopefully we can work something out and contribute to the people-to-people contact between our two countries. We have an array of outstanding speakers in each session, and I'm confident that today's discussions will greatly enhance our mutual appreciation and goodwill. A warm thank you to our sponsors, Trivium, and also to our Consulate General of India for supporting us in this program, and my friend Navneet, who's sitting there. Thank you very much for supporting us, and thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a great afternoon ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Rekha. Thank you so much for those wonderful remarks. I just want to say this, that Rekha is such a wonderful brand ambassador for across the board, not only for just UC Santa Cruz, but for all of us. I mean, in terms of every time any of us go to India, we all look towards AIMA to, in various shapes and forms. So thank you, Rekha, for all you do, for all of us. And one of the nice parts about being sort of the MC for these things is that I get to say whatever I want to say. Right? I don't have a topic. So I'm learning more about our panelists. So Rekha is a wonderful long-distance swimmer. I mean, talk about people who have some wonderful skills. So thank you. Yeah. Anyway, next up, we have Sunil Punjal. And by the way, I'm trying to refrain from not using misters and all that stuff, just if that's okay with everybody. He's the chairman of AIMA as well as the Hero Enterprise. And the thing about Sunil is that he's, again, back to India soft power. I happened to be in last December in Goa, and they have this, he's a patron of the arts. And I mean, there's a global gathering called the Serendipity Arts Festival. I mean, it just was a treat. I mean, really, I know we talk about economic numbers, we talk about other things like that, but when you see these kind of things happening at the grassroots level, you realize, you see the future of India. So with that, Sunil, please join us.
Thank you, PK. And we shall not call what's going on weird, but it is a bit strange. Cindy, thank you very much for your wonderful, warm hospitality. Consul General Reddy, thank you very much for joining us here today. Kalina, Rekha, ladies and gentlemen. We keep talking about global relations and how they are going through a metamorphosis right now. But the reality is the world is actually pulling apart. What you're seeing is quite the reversal of globalization that we've seen over many, many decades in the recent gone past. So here is an interesting shift. The US and India are actually an exception to this global shift. At this moment, and Rekha, to your point, I think this is a relationship which is trade-linked, is tech-driven, and is trust-based. And I think these three strands make it both enduring and endearing. And I think to PK's point, we also need to work on the connection on soft power. And some of it comes naturally, PK, because so many of you, our biggest export has been this wonderful population which is running the hospitals here, teaching classes here, doing research, running many of the top tech companies. So Indians here have made themselves a part of the normal, natural life of this country, but have retained their links and connections back home. And I think that's what's so wonderful about this relationship, that we are connected at many, many different levels. And each one has its own value that it adds to this relationship. We do know that India is one of the fastest growing large economies in the world, if not the actual fastest. We are going to grow at over 7% this year, and any country would give their left arm and right leg to actually get even halfway there. But we sometimes feel this is not enough, because we are both hungry for the growth, we are very aspirational, and we also have a problem to solve. We still have parts of our population living in abject poverty. So for us, growth is not just for the heck of it. It has a real deep meaning in trying to address real issues of people in our country. Which is why for us, technology has come as a boon that we're able to catapult over a few stages of development and jump straight to things like wireless telephony, from being the most expensive in the world to the lowest priced, and I dare say, slightly better quality than you have here. Because since we came in, I've heard plenty of complaints from my friends, what's wrong with this phone? My phone doesn't seem to work. And we've actually got used to a significantly better quality of service. So anything less today seems an irritant, which I think is a good problem. For long, US and India have skirted around this issue of building not just trade relationships, not just foreign direct investment both ways, but also a defense relationship. And we were not quite able to. One, Russia has been a long-term partner of India's, supplying us with defense technologies and equipment and backing that up with availability of spares whenever required. But finally, over the last few years, we've kind of got over the hump in this relationship, the hump of this lack of belief in each other that we can do this for the long term. And right now, this is on a wonderful high growth path. So we are seeing this happen in just so many areas, whether you look at drones, you look at aircraft, so you look at just so much other defense equipment. Overall, technology is one of the big drivers. So we have demonstrated this by opening India up to many of the top tech companies in the US. And India's big move for the semiconductor mission has been welcomed with open arms from here. We have some of our friends in this room itself who have made visits to India. Two of your companies have made deep commitments, and a very large number are on the way. And we've seen them have conversations, make tie-ups in the country, and some of the projects are already off the ground. Trade itself has grown. US is now our largest trade partner. We are close to 200 billion, but it's good, but it's not good enough. Not for the size of economies that we both are. We are a $3.7 trillion economy, hoping to become a $7.3 trillion economy in less than 5 to 7 years from now, which means we are going to more than double what we do as a nation. And which of course involves some heavy lifting, but India is doing it in a very interesting way. We are building physical infrastructure and we are building digital infrastructure at the very same time. I'm not sure any other nation has actually done this in parallel at one go. And this is across all the full spectrum of physical infrastructure. We are building 200 new airports, we are building 27 new seaports, we are building thousands and thousands of miles of highways. Actually, India's road building program is an interesting one. It's not quite fully understood as to how large and how complex and at what pace it's currently moving. This starts, of course, with the big highways, but goes all the way in 5 different tiers to the roads connecting villages. And the interesting thing in the villages, and that's important because for India to develop, all of India needs to develop. I spoke about poverty earlier. A lot of this poverty exists in the rural parts of India, in the villages of India. Now India's got a 5-track program running into rural infrastructure. Every district in the country has already been connected. Now the attempt is to get to every village in the country. Roads, electricity, broadband, piped water, gas for cooking. And this may seem like something which is normal to those who live in California, but actually it's been a big, big challenge for many countries. Certainly it has been in India. And what is currently going on in many ways is transformative. And I think we are yet to see the full multiplier impact of all of these investments that's currently taking place. The relationship cannot be more than demonstrated by the Prime Minister of India making 9 visits in the last 10 years. I don't think he's made this many visits to any other country on the planet in this period. And this is because it truly matters both sides. And while it is a concern for many which side wins the elections in the US, but I think India is one of those countries which has this sense of comfort that regardless of which side comes in, this relationship is on the right track, is on the rails for growth. There is a sense of comfort that this can only get better. And I certainly hope that will be the case in reality as well. And we do know that every time an administration changes, some focus on a few things will be more, some will be less. But I do believe the broad direction is not going to change as it's happened in India. The good thing in India is that over the last 30 years, political parties across the entire spectrum believe the only answer to all our big challenges lies in growth. So while every political party, almost every political party, has been in government in the last 30 years, the direction of the global, India's global approach, India's economic view has not quite changed. The focus has certainly sharpened of late, and our execution capability has become much sharper. That used to be one of our big challenges. The 2 or 3 challenges that we used to have, one was excessive red tape, corruption in the system, slow implementation. Each of these is being addressed with a fair degree of vigor, almost violently in some cases. And I think if we can put that behind us, the opportunity is absolutely immense because India wants to grow to be amongst the leading nations in the world, not to be seen as isolationist, as the challenge has become with China right now, but to be seen as a part of the global value chain. And that is important. That's a message that we want to make sure is loud and clear. We want to stand up and be counted, but as one amongst the many. So for us, this is truly an important relationship, and therefore for us, this is a truly important conference and a session. And I want to thank our partners, UCSC, for hosting us here, especially for hosting us in this campus, because the other one is a little bit of a drive for us, since most of the visits we are doing are in Silicon Valley, although we have added San Diego this time to the visit to go and also look at some of what the stuff that's happening in health tech and in the innovation taking place there. Thank you all very much for coming in here. I see many familiar faces, many friends here, and many friends that we will make in the future. So thank you all for being here with us. Thank you for your encouragement. And thank you, Rekha, for organizing this.
Sunil, thank you for those inspiring remarks. For all of those who span both countries, all of you, most of us, it's very inspiring. It's a moment of pride. You've come a long ways from 20, 30, 40 years ago in India. Although, Sunil, you talked about the bad cell phone service. Now, I know I'm talking like
Get used to it, though.
I'll talk like economist. I know that conversation Lori is going to have later on. So India's productivity is pretty good. US struggles with having productivity beyond 2%, 2.5%, 3%. So the way to boost it is have poor cell phone service and no WhatsApp. And our productivity yeah. Anyway, thank you for those remarks. Next up, we have Consul General Shrikar Reddy. We have a decision to make. It might be easier if everybody moves in the front there, so you can see the slide deck. Consul General is going to use a slide deck here.
Yeah, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, Chairman AIMA International and Chairman Hero Enterprise. Mrs. Cynthia Larivi, Chancellor UCSC. Mrs. Rekha Sethi, DG AIMA. Mrs. Galini Hale, Professor of Economics, UC Santa Cruz. Esteemed members of the AIMA delegation, faculty members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, namaskar. It is a great honor and privilege to participate in the inaugural session of the 7th India-US Conference and address this August gathering. At the outset, on behalf of the Consulate General of India in San Francisco, I welcome all of you to this important conference. I'd also like to thank UCSC, the Chancellor also for supporting and also hosting this event here in the Silicon Valley campus. So I'll be making a PowerPoint presentation. Some of the elements of the India-US relationship have already been shared by earlier speakers, especially Mr. Munjal has eloquently shared some of the important aspects of this bilateral partnership. But I would like to just highlight some of the recent initiatives between our two countries in various sectors, especially in the trade and also in the area of technology, and how both countries are also enhancing the mutual trust and confidence between the two countries. You know that, as Mr. Munjal also mentioned, Honorable Prime Minister visited US 9 times in 10 years. In fact, he visited thrice in the last 15 months. He was here in June last year, where he addressed the US Congress, and President Biden visited India for the G20 summit in September last year, and just last week our Prime Minister was in New York, where he also had a bilateral meeting with President Biden, and also we had a quadrilateral summit also in Delaware. And in fact, there is a enhancement of mutual trust and confidence in the recent years, and President Biden rightfully called last year the India-US partnership is among the most consequential relationships in the world, and it will be the defining partnership in the 21st century because both countries share the values of democracy, freedom, and rule of law, and both are also working in the Indo-Pacific for global peace and also prosperity. So regarding the defense partnership, as Mr. Munjal also referred to earlier, we were sourcing a lot of our defense products from Russia, but in the last few years, we have become one of the closest partner, like the US designated India as a major defense partner in the year 2016. Like this is, for a non-NATO ally, this is the closest designation any other country can get. So we also like the US Congress has also authorized recent sale of MQ-9B drones, you must be aware, which is the 4 billion worth of drones India is purchasing. So these kind of defense equipment can all be shared with countries which have a close trust and confidence with US because these kind of dual-use technologies the US Congress will not allow to be shared with a non-NATO ally. And we have regular interaction at the defense. Just last month, our defense minister was here in Washington, D.C., and also he visited some other cities. So in fact, the overall strategic relationship, we have this 2+2 ministerial dialogue, so which is a framework which is dealing with the overall strategic partnership between the two countries. Now we have a global comprehensive and strategic partnership which covers all areas of human endeavor, but we have this 2+2 at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense of both countries. Already we have 5 rounds of meeting. The last 2+2 meeting was held in New Delhi in November. And this is overall, it provides guidance for all the political, military, and strategic issues. And in the recent years, we have seen close military-to-military exchanges, especially all the wings of the, like the Navy, Air Force, and military. They participate in a lot of joint exercises, not only in the Indo-Pacific, but also even some of our military army people. They also, even our INS naval ship visited San Diego also for a part of the joint exercises. So both the military are also collaborating to provide humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, especially in the Indo-Pacific region, as the first responders for any natural calamity, cyclone or earthquake, anything. So our forces will be the first responders. And like there was a big exercise called Tiger Triumph, which happened in the month of March near Visakhapatnam. And just in the month of June, there was a big exercise called RIMPAC, which was held in Hawaii, where a lot of, close to, I think, 5,000 Indian army men participated in those joint exercises. And also one of the important things you can see is this 44-member multilateral combined maritime force, which is in Bahrain. India has recently joined as a member. So this is to prevent piracy in the Indian Ocean. So India also is playing an important role, especially to keep the sea lanes free from piracy, the Red Sea, and also they also recently caught a lot of drugs. You can see in one of the pictures there. As Mr. Munjal mentioned, now we are also procuring a lot of defense equipment from the US. So we already procure almost 20 billion worth of US equipment. You can see some of these chopper, Chinook, Apache, and MH-60R. And already spoke about these MQ-9B drones, which the Congress recently authorized, and they will be supplied to India. So, and we have this defense partnership. Not only India is sourcing defense equipment, now there's emphasis on co-research and development and also co-joint production in India. So we can see for the first time that General Electric has entered into a understanding with HAL in Bengaluru. So they will be manufacturing these GE 414 engines for the light combat aircraft in India. Also, we have this important INDUS-X, which is called India-US Defense Accelerator Ecosystem to promote collaboration among the startups. So the third summit was held in the month of September in Stanford. So this is to promote collaboration between the defense startups. So already a lot of even Indian defense startups, they are able to get some sort of entry into some of the defense supply ecosystem in the US. So regarding the Indian economy, before I go to the India-US economic partnership, so already some of the elements were shared by Mr. Munjal. So as you rightly said, India is now the bright spot in the global economy. So Indian economy last year grew 8.2% and it is expected to grow 7% in the next few years and will become a 7 trillion economy by 2030. And even we have set an ambitious target of enhancing our exports to 1 trillion each in both goods and services by 2030. Currently, overall our exports in both merchandise, goods and services are at 780. And Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, he has set a ambitious target to make India a developed country by 2047. So India, if it grows 8 to 10% per annum, I think the economists have projected that India will reach at least 30 trillion economy by 2047, and the GDP will grow 10 times to become 20,000. And also, because we are banking on the demographic dividend, average Indian population is 28 years. Unlike US, it is 38, China, it is 39, and EU, it is 44. So in the next 20 years, our population by 2047, it is also expected to reach average age of 38 years, but we want to use this demographic dividend in these years so that we can promote growth in India. So some of the reforms already Mr. Munjal has mentioned, like Government of India recently to make India a manufacturing hub. So we have come up with a lot of production-linked incentive schemes in various sectors, around 17 sectors, including electronics, pharmaceuticals, automotive industry, and also various, even drone also we have a separate PLA scheme. And government is investing in infrastructure. We have this Prime Minister Modi Gati Shakti scheme. And also, like, we want to become a major player in the digital economy. Already, you must be aware about the India Stack, the India Digital Infrastructure, which is like based on our digital identity Aadhaar card. We have this United Payment Interface. So even everybody, if you visit India, even a poor man, he will only make transaction digitally. So just last month, to give you an idea, close to 14.96 billion transactions happened under the UPI. And because we have this already digital economy, we have a huge data availability, which is also important for the artificial intelligence sector to grow. Even Government of India recently came up with the AI mission. So we are also working with companies like NVIDIA to improve our computing infrastructure. We want to develop 10,000 GPU infrastructure. We are also giving incentives to a lot of startups to come up with applications for socio-economic inclusive development of India, especially in the healthcare sector, education, and also agriculture. And even we have a huge startup ecosystem in India. Now it is third largest. We have around 146,000 Government of India recognized startups, and already we have 115 unicorns. But for India to achieve whatever ambition, like to become a developed country by 2047, we need support from friendly countries like US. So while US is the largest trading partner of India in terms of goods and services, like Mr. Munjal mentioned, it is close to 190 billion US dollars last year. But as a percentage of the overall US trade, it is only 2.2%. While China overall, as a percentage of US trade, it is 14 to 15%. So easily, bilateral trade, we can easily double. Already our leaders have set an ambitious target of 500 billion by 2030. Even US is the third largest investor in India with over 66.7 billion in the last 24 years since April 2000. But given the size of the US economy, I consider it is very less because you can see India has also invested close to 40 billion in the US. So Indian companies are creating 425,000. I just met the Tata Chemical CEO. He said the company has invested close to 2 billion in Wyoming in a chemical factory. So when India, with a GDP of less than 4 trillion, can make 40 billion investment in US, I think we expect significant investment from the US, which is a 27 trillion economy. And you can see the level of trust between the two countries. It is also shown in the resolution of 7 outstanding disputes at the World Trade Organization. As a former delegate of India to the World Trade Organization, I can say how difficult it is between countries to resolve disputes. Only because of the trust at the highest level, we are able to resolve the disputes. Means it is like out of the court settlement, we are able to resolve the disputes, and that shows the trust and confidence between the two countries. So this is just figures I already mentioned. In the merchandise trade, it is in India's favor. We have a trade surplus of over 40 billion. Even in a service sector also, we have a surplus. So this initiative on critical and emerging technology, ISET. So this was launched in January last year. And this is the most important framework under which collaboration in critical and emerging sectors such as artificial intelligence, quantum, semiconductors, space and biotech is happening. Like this framework promotes collaboration with all the stakeholders, especially at the government level, at the institutions like universities, and also the business, also to even form joint ventures, to consider co-development and co-production, especially with the intention to come up with solutions which are affordable, not only to countries of India and US, but also to all the friendly people who can also afford these technologies. And under the same thing, we have signed an innovation handshake in November last year when Mr. Piyush Goyal was here. So under which we are promoting collaboration between the startup ecosystems between the two countries. This will also bring together the startups, especially sharing of the best practices. Even the venture capitalists and the institutional stakeholders will be meeting with the startups, and they can. We are expecting the US venture capitalists will invest in Indian startups, and also we recently had an ASCAM delegation just last week. 35 companies were here. They were doing pitching, and also they are expecting to raise some amount from the VCs in the Bay Area. So you can see already a lot of investment is happening from the US, especially in the tech sector. Just in the month of August, when the Telangana Chief Minister was here, Amgen, a biotech company, announced to set up a 3,000 people research center in Hyderabad. Micron is developing first ATMP facility in Gujarat. So I think it will start production sometime this year or early next year. And you can see a lot of emphasis is on the tech sector, even defense, and also even the cloud computing and other areas. So one of the important area of collaboration under the ISET is also education institutions collaboration. So both countries have set up a joint task force comprising of Association of American Universities and IIT Council. So they submitted a report in January this year. You can see, so they have called for a setting up of a US-India Global Challenges Institute with the support of 90 million from both the governments. So they will be trying to come up with solutions in the sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, semiconductors, healthcare, and also artificial intelligence. And they also made a lot of recommendations regarding to student and faculty exchange, and also dissemination of best practices, especially among the universities. So some of the existing university collaborations, especially I only included the universities in California because we can see UC Santa Cruz also has a tie with IIT Kanpur in the area of computer science engineering. And we also have UC Davis also helping Telangana and other state governments in coming up with the EV policy. And space is an important area of collaboration, especially like India has signed the Artemis Accords, and NASA is helping ISRO in human space flight, commercial collaboration, and also space exploration together. In fact, this NISAR satellite, NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar, this was built by NASA at the Jet Propulsion Laboratories in Los Angeles at the Caltech, and it is being shipped to India, and it is expected to launch this year. So this is a Earth observation satellite which will provide a lot of data points with regarding to climate change, which can be shared with all the countries in the globe. And another important area of collaboration is clean economy. And we have this bilateral partnership under the India-US Climate and Clean Energy Agenda. And we also have this Renewable Infrastructure Investment Fund, which is also helping to invest in India. And one more important thing is India has joined this Mineral Security Partnership, a 14-member grouping, especially to secure the critical mineral supply chain like lithium, nickel, and cobalt. So one important framework which has come up recently is the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. So I was one of the lead negotiators for India for the clean economy pillar. So out of the 4 pillars, India has joined 3 pillars. Pillars are supply chains, clean economy, and fair economy. And in fact, the supply chain agreement entered into force in February this year. And this is basically all the 14, this is a 14-member grouping with a 40% global trade, because we have all the Quad countries and important ASEAN countries and Korea and also Fiji, New Zealand. So this overall agreement tries to increase the demand for goods and services through a concerted effort of the government, and also encourages investment in between the companies in the private sector, and also response to the supply chain disruption. Especially you can see this clean economy agreement, this is very important. There is also any technology which will be developed should be affordable and which should be shared among the partner countries, especially with regarding to battery or anything which will reduce the carbon intensity. Even hard to abate industries like steel and aluminum, if there's any technology which could be shared between the partner countries. And already a investors meeting was held in Singapore in June this year, and already 23 billion investments were pledged in that meeting. This agreement is expected to enter into force from October 11 this year. As California being a Pacific coastal state, I think we have a lot of potential, especially in terms of renewable energy and also green hydrogen, because this is a very strong industry here. And in addition to the bilateral cooperation, India is collaborating with the US in other forums. The important one is the Quadrilateral Forum, along with Japan and Australia. So this is for the free and open Indo-Pacific that is inclusive and resilient. So a lot of economic activities are also going on under this framework. We have this Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness to combat IUU fishing and also to respond for any climate-related events. We have this Quad Investors Network also, which will encourage investment in the clean energy and also emerging technologies. And also there is also this health security partnership, including we have this Cancer Moonshot initiative of President Biden. And as you know, as I mentioned, G20 is also an important forum for collaboration, where in the September meeting, Prime Minister Modi and President Biden announced these 2 important initiatives: Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment and India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So I think these are very important initiatives which will help India-US partnership to further go forward. As Mr. Munjal mentioned, there is a bipartisan support, both sides in both countries. Any election in India and US, this will not alter the course of the India-US partnership. we see the sky is the only limit now. So I'm not mentioning about the Indian diaspora role. They are playing a very important part in the overall relationship because they are at the very high levels. I think, according to a recent report, 16 of the top CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies are from India, which includes Sundar Pichai and also Satya Nadella. So, somebody told me that in the Bay Area, startups, 50% of the startups either have an India founder or an India CEO. So that's what I was told. So that shows like Bay Area will, and also the state of California will play an important role in enhancing the partnership with India and US, especially in the critical and emerging technologies. And these are some of the other like forums where India and US are collaborating, especially in the World Trade Organization, at the UN, World Bank, and other global platforms. So I think the India-US partnership, there could be some glitches here and there, but it will only go highs from here. So our focus is to enhance the partnership in the economic and commerce domain because we have a very good relationship at leaders level and also defense partnership. But the economic partnership is a little bit lagging, but there is a tremendous potential. I hope the CEOs visiting the part of the AIMA delegation, I think this will further encourage the ties between India and US. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul General. That's a comprehensive overview of where India is headed. So with that, I'd like to invite our Professor in Economics, Galina Hale. And as I'm getting to know our panelists, a couple of things about Galina. She is masochistic. She likes to swim in cold water, that you know, and cold water is cold here. And I asked her a question, what was she like a 16-year-old? And I'll let her explain that herself. So Galina, please.
Thank you. Thanks, PK. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this panel. I learned a lot. I'm not exactly sure what I can add. As a 16-year-old, I was nerdy and shy, but I was also mischievous, so a dangerous kind of combination. So I was asked to give some closing remarks for this panel. I didn't know what the panelists were going to say, so it's a little bit of an improv exercise for me. But I did think a little bit about the questions that were asked for this panel. And it was really good to hear the optimistic tone of the presentations, as you noticed. Nowadays, we don't hear so many optimistic things. And where I think it's coming from is realization how much you gain when you have trust. Right? And in the US-India relationship, we are now at the state when there is a lot of trust on both ends, as we saw from the previous presentations. And what that allows is so much collaboration. Collaboration in terms of trade, so at the level of goods, at the level of FDI, so the level of firms, and then at the level of people in terms of education and scientific collaboration. And importantly, what I think is different from kind of a traditional paradigm of North-South relationship that, you know, I'm used in economic textbooks and things like that, this is all two-way street, right? It's not the traditional upstream of the supply chain is produced in the South and then it's consumed eventually in the North. That is not what we are talking about. We're talking about the supply chains that have many stages and parts of goods are going back and forth for the final goods to then be sold in both economies because both economies are really large and really influential. And I think India is in a unique position to be in that kind of symmetric relationship with the US because of the very high level of education, a lot of native talent that allows for this collaboration, as you know, evidenced by the statistic of how many Indian nationals we now have in Silicon Valley driving this global innovation hub. But it doesn't have to all happen in the Silicon Valley. It could also be happening, and it is also happening in India. And you know, as an academic, I can dream. So I kind of dream of the world without too much in terms of the borders, because I think borders inhibit our ability to build a better future for the world. And, I'd like to see as many Americans, running companies in India as we have Indians running companies in the US. Because I think everybody is going to benefit from this, because the diversity of the backgrounds is what really leads to innovation. And I'm not making it up. There's like a whole bunch of academic papers that are showing that when you have diverse backgrounds in the groups, in the teams of innovators, the rate of patent, grants, all this is going up dramatically. So I think that's where the potential is. A couple of things I wanted to mention that I kind of learned from my research over the last 20 or so years is that people frequently talk about exports and FDI and education linkages as separate things, but these are all incredibly interlinked. Whenever you have foreign direct investment, you have technology spillovers that help increase productivity of domestic firms as well as the foreign-owned firms. Then domestic firms are more able to compete in the export markets with, say, foreign export platforms. So things like that need to be taken account, and we usually tend to underestimate the benefits of foreign direct investment and different other types of collaboration. A couple of warning things, though. As collaboration grows, attention needs to be paid to where along the multi-stage supply chain is the most profit generated and where it ends, in whose hands it ends up being. As the supply chains grow longer and longer, so 20 years ago, the longest number of stops in different countries a good would take was like 4, right? So we produce one piece in Germany, then it goes to China, then it goes to India, and then it goes to the US. Nowadays, it's more like 9. And so the different parts travel all around the world before they end up in front of the consumer. Whichever part of that supply chain has the most market power tends to have the most profit. And so that's something that needs to be at least discussed to make sure that we don't have a monopoly power somewhere along the supply chain that's going to basically take all the profit from all the other stages of that supply chain. And that's something economists are just now learning to pay attention to, even though in operations research, people have been aware of that for the longest time. Another thing, in a search for efficiency, right, we're trying to produce the goods in most efficient ways. We frequently forget about fragility of the supply chains, right? So the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami was an example where we learned that if some part of the car is only produced in that one factory in the world, then when this factory is not functioning for 2 weeks, no cars were made anywhere in the world because nobody else was producing that one widget. So there is this trade-off between efficiency and resiliency, and that's something that needs to be also discussed. Finally, I work on climate, so I have to talk about climate. And I was happy to hear about climate initiatives. And I think India is in a position to leapfrog some of the worst technologies. So maybe, if gas for cooking is absolutely needed, great. But if we can just skip it to induction stoves and use electricity, that would be even better. But I think, so in that sense, the mitigation technology, I think, needs to be spread around the world freely without any kind of payment expected, especially from the countries that produced most of the emissions in the last 150 years, which is North America and Europe and Russia, to the countries that are, bearing the most of the climate change consequences. And so I think that, if I could dream, that's one thing I would want, is to make sure that climate tech is not, subject to restrictions on adoption. In terms of climate adaptation, though, we still are at the very beginning of learning how to protect ourselves from extreme heat, drought, flood, and all the other consequences of climate change. Agriculture is extremely vulnerable, and so I don't need to be saying these things in this audience. I think India is in a unique position to take leadership in this, because India is very exposed to those risks, and it has a population that both highly educated with a lot of talent, but also the diversity of the communities living in different climatic zones that have thousands of years of ecological stewardship experience. And so the combination of new tech stuff with native knowledge of the land and how to live in the land and in a sustainable way is something that I think India can teach the world about. So I'm going to stop here.
Thank you, Galina. Thank you for wrapping this up. I'm sure that was a very refreshing inaugural session. So on behalf of all of us, thank you. Thank you, Rekha. Thank you, Cindy. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Consul General, Sunil, and Galina. Thank you so much.